Welcome back to the PMR podcast. My name is Mitch. I'm an alcoholic and addict. This is episode 49. Super excited for today.
Welcome back, everyone. My name's Andrew. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Really excited. This is our 26th guest out of 49 episodes. We did the math earlier. It's a little bit more than half. And that's amazing. I'm really honored, you know, that we have so many people interested in coming on and sharing their story, sharing their experience. And we just get to keep the ball rolling today. I'm I'm excited to welcome Chris Connor. Chris is a fellow Hingham, Massachusetts resident. He is a man in recovery over a year. He has gone to Herren Wellness, the same place that I went to get sober, the same place I work. He's an active member of that community, that alumni community. He regularly visits and does service work there, attends commitments there. And he's, beyond just recovery. I think Chris is a powerful example of having fun in recovery. He's part of a big community of men my age to 50 plus that have kind of banded together at Herren and have really, for me, made recovery fun. So I'm excited to welcome Chris and to hear your story, my friend.
Welcome back to the PMR podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you our first partnership with Clean Cause. Clean Cause is a pretty awesome company. They sell yerba mate drinks. The founder is in recovery, and they put 50% of their net profits back into those struggling with addiction and alcoholism. Absolutely love their company, absolutely love their message, and very thankful for them to partner with us. If you're interested in getting some, you go to their website, cleancause.com. All right. When you're checking out, you're going to enter in Mitch20 into the discount code area, and that's going to get you 20% off on these fire drinks. Right now, I got that cherry lime. All right. Enjoy this week.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mitch. Thanks, Andrew, for the intro. I'm Chris. I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to sort of share my story. I was thinking I know I'm getting better when I want to talk about it, and selfishly it sort of helps me and hopefully, it helps other people. But yeah, as you mentioned, I got about a year and a half now of recovery, which is the longest I've ever had. I've really never been doing better, but it was sort of a long road. So, I can just tell a little bit about my story and where I started and kind of what I learned throughout that process, and then where I am now. As Andrew mentioned, I grew up in Hingham. So I'm 37 years old. I got two younger sisters. We're all two ages, 2 grades apart, and my childhood was great. Like I was thinking about this morning. My family and my friends uh, have been a mainstay. Like the same like 10 best friends that I have outside like my group of recovery friends are the same kids that I went to Seth Elementary School with, essentially. Um, it's one thing about like I think like going to public schools and stuff, and a lot of the kids I grew up with live here. But like I had great friends, I had a great family. I didn't have anything to complain about, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, um, on golf courses and beaches. Like I didn't have any trauma really, and that was actually sort of hard for me when I began the treatment center, like carousel, if you will, like for a few reasons, right? I was seeing like all these kids that came from broken homes that had all of this trauma, like, physical, sexual, and I didn't have any of that. It almost, it was almost like I could see them and it's like, well, I understand why they turned to drugs and alcohol, but like, what the hell happened to me? Like, I don't have anything to, I've been told through this process that like I shouldn't really think like that because that sort of invalidates my struggle and kind of what I went through. which is true. Like, it doesn't really matter how you got there. Like, I got myself into some pretty dark spots. But as I said, I grew up. I played sports growing up. I played, pretty much all the sports as a young kid, and then basketball and golf were the two sports that I played in high school. Academically, I was always pretty smart. Socially, I always had friends. As I got older, I always had girlfriends and everything. Like my childhood and my adolescence was, looking back, again, I don't have anything to complain about. My parents raised me right. They instilled great values in me, how to treat people, work ethic, all of that. The one thing that I think back on, right? And as I said, I wouldn't trade my parents for the world. Like, I wouldn't be where I am without them. They've given me everything. They continue to give me everything. I love them to death. We didn't really speak about emotions like growing up, like, how are you doing? It was like, do good in school, like, work hard. It was like, coming back from school, it was like, like, how'd you do on that test? Like, did you get an A on that test? Like, and that's sort of all the things that I thought were important. And it wasn't like, how are you feeling? You know what I mean? Because I guess looking back, I always felt like a little bit different. Uh, Insecurities, fears, like idiosyncrasies and stuff. But no, I got to high school and I quit basketball. I quit basketball my junior year. And again, as I think back on that, I was so afraid of making a mistake. Like, I talked about those fears and those insecurities and like what other people think. Like, I didn't want to make a mistake on the basketball court. Like, I didn't really practice. I got into like drugs, it was in alcohol, started smoking weed, started drinking like maybe like sophomore year, late sophomore year or whatever. But um junior year, there was a freshman coming up who was better than me for sure. Right. And he was going to take my minutes and he was going to take my spot on the team. And like, instead of like fighting for my minutes and everything else, I just quit. Like, it was a no-brainer. As Andrew knows, hockey is like really big in Hingham. It's a social type thing. And like, I remember telling my buddies, like, I'm just gonna drink and go to hockey games. It'd be a lot more fun. And I look back on that, right? Because it was the first time that I I gave up something I was passionate about, like basketball, in favor of drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
And I also sort of like quit. Like, I didn't want to put the work in. It was easier and more fun, um, to drink and hang out with girls. And like, at the time, I didn't really, see that. But looking back, I do look at that as sort of like a pivotal turning point and kind of where I went. Good academically, National Honor Society, high school was good. I graduated in 2004. I went to Holy Cross. Uh, Holy Cross was awesome. Like, best 4 years of my life because I had a lot of fun doing alcohol and drugs, like a lot of fun. Until I didn't, until it sort of became a full-time job. But at Holy Cross, again, I loved all the kids. I loved the school. I loved everything about it. I started to like alcohol and marijuana. Marijuana then became a daily thing my sophomore year. I didn't really smoke much in high school. I drank a lot. Um, in high school, it started out, just on Friday and Saturday nights. And then senior year, like, we were drinking during the week and stuff, cutting school and all that. But I got into marijuana, which became like a daily thing when I was 19 years old, when I was a sophomore, right? So alcohol and marijuana have always been like mainstays. And I started to experiment with other harder drugs, Adderall, cocaine, Xanax. Um, I never really got into like oxys or anything like that, but like, I would try anything. Like, I liked everything. Um, And it was fine. It was fun. It was a party. I had a great time doing that. I graduated from Holy Cross, and I was lucky because I graduated in 2008 when like the housing market crashed and people weren't getting jobs and everything else. And I had gotten a job at a small software company like before I graduated, and then by the time I started, that software company had been acquired by NetSuite, which is a large cloud-based ERP platform, software company out of San Mateo. And at the end of my run there, we were acquired by Oracle. But like I had a good job, and I had this life where I graduated school. I'm living in South Boston with two of my best friends. I'm working. I'm making good money. I met this girl who I really really liked. Like I thought that everything was going well. Now I'm a daily drinker. I'm a daily marijuana smoker. Uh, Gambling is also a big part of my story. So I'm like doing all of these things, and I've heard Andrew say this. Like essentially, what happened was I was working for this company, and things were going well. I started traveling a lot too, and like I was in sales, so I would travel across the country, and I was traveling by myself. Like I wasn't important enough to go to bring the clients out and like because I would have been a liability, but like I was invited to the meetings. So I look back on that, and there's a lot of time at airplanes, airports. I used to love airport and hotel bars, right? Like I was just like drinking by myself, and that sort of led to isolation later on, which was no good. But and I also had the ability to work from home. Like I know during COVID, this like whole Zoom thing and everything else, everyone started like I worked from home essentially from the jump, 2008 when I started. Um, so I had a lot of flexibility and freedom in my job, which again, I'm not pointing my fingers at like reasons why I'm an alcoholic or whatever, but it allowed me to get away with a lot of things.
Mm.
Um, what happened was this girl I was with, like I thought I had everything figured out. I had the job, I had the girl, I had the money, right? Um, and she broke up with me, and I didn't handle it well at all. Um, she said she was like, I think you have a drinking and a gambling problem. Like I remember it. It was 2015. And, you know, in my mind, and I said this and I think I believed it or I wanted to believe it. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just doing all these things. I'm just drinking and gambling and everything to get it out of my system for when like we have a future and we have kids. Um, she didn't really think that was a tremendous foundation from which to build upon, right? So, and that's when things got bad because at the time I was living in Southie, and my buddy, my two best friends, they own JJ Foley's in town. So like that was another thing. I could work from home. They own a bar. Now I'm drinking, Friday, Saturday, Thursday nights like normal people, but I'm also drinking Sunday and Monday nights, which are the industry nights and the restaurant. And I'm plugged in and all these Boston bars. Like I, again, not no one's fault but my own. I'm just trying to like paint a picture of the lifestyle. But like when that happened, my boy was getting really close with his now wife. So she was moving in and I was moving out. And at the time, I was sort of jammed up. I didn't have a place to stay. So like I had to move home temporarily. My parents saw firsthand, like, like one too many times with the car in the front yard, like, wow, this is bad. Like they knew that like something was up, but then they saw firsthand really, really what happened. And Andrew has has talked about this. Like I was living a double life, and all of a sudden those lines crossed, and I didn't like it. Like on to the outside world, right? Like as I mentioned, like I graduated from a good school. I come from a good
Mhm.
family. I have a good job. Chris is doing well. Like meanwhile, Chris can't keep a drink out of his hand, smoking drugs every day, awful gambling problem, um, verbally abusive, manipulative, like in my relationship. Um, I didn't want people to see that other side of me, and now all of a sudden the gig was up. and I didn't know what to do. And I handled it very, very poorly. At the time I was still working, I was miserable. 2015, I remember, like, again, I had the ability to work from home. Like I didn't really leave that apartment. Like I smoked weed in that bedroom. I drank. I went down the street to the bar. Like it was not a good year. And I went to my first treatment center in 2017. Your typical, I went to detox. It's funny when you go to like 2017, 2018 was an absolute shitstorm, right? I got sober in 2022. So, I was trying to get sober. I've been trying to get sober for, let's just say, like 5 years, 6 years. And now I have a year and a half of recovery. Like it's not even sobriety. I have good recovery now. So that sort of like paints a picture. But in particular, like 2017, 2018 was really, really bad. I multiple treatment centers, multiple detoxes. There was one week I remember I left so I went rehab, jail, hospital, back to detox, jail, on a flight to Maryland to go to treatment. Like that was all in 1 week. I was out of control. I would go to these treatment centers, and like part of my problem too is like if I had money, like if I had access to money, I I would just leave, like because I knew I could. I would AMA these detoxes, and I'm not like a mastermind criminal or anything like that, but I'd end up in jail because I'd leave in like a benzo blackout, and then I'd drink, and then I'd like not know what happened and wake up in jail, right? And then go to a hotel and just like it was not good. My job, right? The company at the time actually they stuck with me through two treatment centers, and then I lost that job in 2017. I when I lost that job, this is how delusional I was. Like I was making probably 200 grand a year. Like if I just like made my number, like I could have made a lot more than that. And I was relieved when they fired me because I was going to get a $17,000 severance. Like they were going to give me 17K to go away. And I was like, awesome. Like give me that money now, right? Instant gratification. And that money lasted about 3 weeks. I went on like a 3 week run in Boston. Um, and I joke about this, like looking back, I probably should have got like an Airbnb or something. Um, I was staying in hotels, I was drinking at hotel bars, right? Like just insanity. Anyways, I remember this. The money ran out. I came home on Monday, September 11th, and on Thursday, September 14th, I had a seizure. Like I had been to detox before. I didn't think that I needed it this time. I had that seizure in my mother's arms. If I had that seizure, I went to the bait and tackle shop, and then I was going to take the boat out to go fishing. And if I had that seizure in my mother's car, because at the time I didn't own one, or on the boat, like that's it, right? Spent 3 or 4 days in the hospital. I got out of the hospital on a Sunday. Staley, I went to that Cohasset meeting, Cohasset Unity on Monday night. I don't even know if I went or not, but I do know I went to Mr. Dooley's, which was still there at the time. Like that's how insane I was during those years, where I was in the hospital for an alcoholic withdrawal seizure for 4 days. Um, I 2018 I went to treatment again, and then like from 2018 to 2022, right? Like I remember going to treatment in 2022, and during those stretches, like I was working. I did have some successes. I had a nice apartment like in Quincy. I was living in Hingham. Somehow I was like managing, to piece it together. But when I went to treatment in 2022, things were different. And I remember telling Eliza at the time, I was like, well, the last 2 years haven't really been that bad. Like this is only my second treatment center in the last 2 years. And like, think how sick that is. Like most people don't go to a treatment center ever. Um, and I thought it was like a good body of work, right? Uh, I don't know. So a few things happened. Like a few things happened, and then I think we can probably open it up in right, because I've been going for what, like 20 minutes.
Yeah, man. Whatever long you want. We
A
got
few
time.
things happened that changed, right? Because like as I mentioned, I've lost jobs, I've lost relationships, I've had serious health problems. Like I was doing the math, and this is absurd. This is how crazy it was. I 6 inpatient treatment centers, 12 detoxes, multiple hospitals, multiple jails, like outpatient sober houses. Like I've done, and like looking back on that, you're like, wow, that was. But this time around in 2022, a few things happened. My sister had a baby, and the christening was down in New York City. The baptism was down in New York City at St. Patrick's Cathedral. It was this huge deal for my family, and I was supposed to go down there. They were all down there at her house in Westchester. I was taking the train down. I was supposed to stay at her house. I was drinking in the car before I got on that train in Westwood. Um, and I realized I got too drunk, right? And I knew there was a Marriott in Stamford. I like Marriott's. I just peeled off and went on a 72-hour run at that hotel. And I was told not to go to the christening. I was told not to go to the baptism. Um, I was told that I was a liability. I was unfit, So like now it's like now my family's telling me to stay away. I can't even go to and that like that I can lose jobs, I can lose relationships, I can have seizures. Like that wasn't going to keep me sober. Um or get me sober, I should say. And then really the last thing that happened was a few months after that, my father, who already has like 7 stents in his arteries and stuff, he's got high cholesterol and everything else. He had quadruple bypass heart surgery in February of 2022. Like it was very scary for my family. And it was a Friday afternoon, and the surgery went well, and he was coming home, and I was supposed to, do all the chores and everything and go to the dump and take the dog out, like all the stuff that he does on the weekends. And I was excited to do it. My mother called me again on a Friday afternoon, and I was completely shit faced. And I've taken a lot of ass kickings in my life, like doing drugs and alcohol, physically, verbally, emotionally. But this particular ass whooping that she gave me over the phone on that Friday afternoon, is something I'll never forget. I didn't even say anything. I was just like, you're a liability. Do not come around the house. Do not come around the family. I'll go to the dump. Um, I'll take the dog, like, stay away. And I remember just it being in my apartment, like listening to, I didn't say a word. I didn't fight with her. I didn't argue. Um, I didn't say goodbye. Like the phone call just because everything she said was true and everything was completely self-inflicted. Like great childhood, raised well, instilled great values in me, relatively smart, like how did I get here? Um, that was really like the turning point. And that's when I went to treatment in 2022. And I was there for a year. Like they told me they wanted me there for a year. And like this time around, things are a lot different. I take suggestions. Like my life is so much better. I'm just a much better person, like I'm a lot happier. Like I can have anything I want in this life, right? Um, I can have anything I want in this life. I just can't, I just can't drink, right? Or I can drink and I can have nothing. Like I tried for a long time to have both, but like it's that simple for me. So like, I go to meetings now, I take suggestions, I do service work. Um, I live a life of gratitude. Like I thought that gratitude was, like I was always aware that I was like well off and I had things to be grateful for and like, saying thank you. But that's not gratitude. Like gratitude is like a way of life. It's like how you live your life, right? Like I also work for my mother. So I say this like the easiest example is like she's stuck with me. Like she's fired me before. This time around, she didn't fire me. She stuck with me. So like now, like the easiest example is like I owe it to her to be a good employee, to like stay sober, be an awesome employee, like everything. Like I owe it to the people that stuck their neck out for me at Herren like a million times. Like I've known Chris, I've been to Herren 3 times. Like I know Chris and his family and everything, like the 30 for 30, like all that. Like I've known Chris for 5 years. He's always helped me even when I didn't deserve to be helped. His business partner, this woman, Lori McCarthy, is my next door neighbor. Like she helped me for so many years and like living a life of gratitude. Like I owe it to them now. Like they put in so much work to help to try to help me when I didn't want to spend an ounce of energy helping myself. Right. Um, so like staying sober for myself, but like also staying sober for them, like that's because the opposite of gratitude is taking things for granted. And I look back on this, I took everything in my life for granted. Like it sucks to say, like I'm not like a terrible person or anything, but like I took my education for granted. I took all my jobs for granted. I took my relationships for granted, right? Um, and that's why I sort of lost everything. And this is the first time that I'm now like taking advantage of an opportunity that was given to me. Uh, the opportunity that I got to be in treatment for a year to like really focus on myself and everything. Like it's the first time in my life I can honestly say that I'm grateful and taking advantage um, of an opportunity. And it feels good. So I mean, like I think that's all I got. I know we will open it up for 20 minutes or whatever for, questions, comments. You guys tell me.
Yeah, man. That was awesome. Um, I mean, I've known you, uh, what then for a year and a half, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
because I was, was I doing my 1 year or my 2 year celebration when I met you? Well, not
You're
when I
1 year.
saw you there. My 1 year, right?
You're one. We've known each other for like 2 years, but like we
Yes.
really over the last year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was doing my 1 year, and it was April of 22, and you were pretty pretty fresh there. Like, right? When did you get there? Like,
End of February.
yeah, so you were a month and a half in or something. And maybe 2 months in, and there was still a lot going on. I could tell in your head and your heart, like you were reeling from what life had done. And I told my story and did my whole 1 year thing, and you had some great feedback for me. And I just remember it was kind of emotional between you because you and I have a similar background. Different drugs of choice, whatever, doesn't matter, but same, pretty pretty similar upbringings, pretty similar stories with athletics, good college, like good education, seemed like a smart kid, like, and then it's the double life. And I could see you like identifying with me, and that gave me that day and going forward a lot of strength, and I appreciated you being there and giving me feedback. And then again, like at my 2 year celebration, I think, I don't know if you were there, like you weren't a guest there, but I don't know if you were there or if you were on the Zoom or whatever, but
I
it
had
was
just
like,
come back. I had gotten out of the sober house, right? So like I was like I probably had, I don't know, 14 months of sobriety at that point, and I came back for your 2 year.
and you came and it was like a totally new person. It was amazing. Um, and I just, it was, for some reason, those two things really stick out. I did want to ask, you know, because you've been, like you said, you've been to half a dozen treatment centers and detoxes, jails, hospitals, everything else. Like what? And you talked about it a little bit, but like, what was different this time? Can you've been to Herren before? Like, what was different about Herren this time? Like, what? I know that phone call with your mom was pivotal, but it's easy to like. You and I both know it's easy to forget that shit after like when things start to get hard again, and we're like, all right, I kind of want to abandon ship. Like, and staying at Herren, staying anywhere, staying at Herren for a year is just it's a long time and a lot of work to put in. So like what kept you going and why was it different this time? Like what kind of support did you have there?
Yeah, I think a lot about that, right? Like people people say like you need to hit rock bottom. I don't necessarily know if I like agree with that, right? Because like I've said like rock bottom, like I've had multiple rock bottoms. Like I feel like rock bottom is something that like a non-alcoholic or a non-addict says. Like like a rock
Mm.
bottom for me was like a speed bump. Like I had a lot of things that happened that people would have been like, that's rock bottom. So so like um I think in order to get sober and to like you need to want to change. Like I genuinely wanted to change as a person. Um I I think back on this and I'm always so quick to say that 2017 and 2018 was a shitstorm and like 2021, 2022 wasn't that bad. But really like what it was looking back is my tolerance got higher. And it
Mm,
wasn't my tolerance for alcohol. It was my tolerance for like living a shitty, miserable life. Like as time went on, I was just like okay with that,
right.
right? Like I should have went to treatment like 5 months before I did. Um, at the end of my run, like the 9 a.m. liquor store wasn't early enough. Like I had to go to like a 7:45 bar, like morning drinking, everything else. But like I didn't like the person that I had become, right? Um, I really wanted to change how I felt about myself. Um, I wanted to change how other people felt about me. Uh, I remember Eliza. Eliza's a counselor. She used to be a counselor at Herren, and I've known Eliza, for like years and everything. And it was one of our first weeks. Like I was there for like a week, right? And she was like, "You're like a really good person. Like you have a nice heart. Like you're completely misunderstood." And that was like when I kind of realized, I'm like, wait a second, like other people don't think I'm a good person. And it's like, well, I was like, if you carry yourself like an asshole, like verbally abusive, manipulative, arrogant, dismissive, then no, they're not going to see your heart. Like, and I realized that like that's what I turned into.
Right.
Um, so like I really needed to change. And then like what was different? What was different was everything. Like she told me, "Hey, you're staying here for a year." And I was like, "Okay." Um, like, okay. Like my other attempts at recovery, I was trying to recover alcoholically. Like I was applying like an alcoholic mindset to a program of recovery. It was like oil
Mm,
and water, not gonna work. And like what I mean by that is like I need to get back to the job. I need to get back to the girl. I need to get back to the apartment. Like I need all of these things. And it's like, no, you don't know anything. Like you need to shut up and like stay here for a year, you know? So I think it was the first time that like I wanted to change and I was like, I'm not driving the bus.
Yeah. I love a lot. I loved hearing your story. I relate to a lot to what you said. And some of the things I especially really liked hearing is the difference between sobriety and recovery that you noted. I relate to that big time. Or I guess, because I talk about a good portion of my recovery or sobriety having been without a program. Um, and like when you just said talking about trying to get back all the other things that we had in an alcoholic way, I did a lot of that. Um, and I think like talking about the bottom, I was just talking to a buddy of mine. I completely agree with you. My understanding of the bottom is when you decide to change. So I mean, it can be endless, and until it isn't. And then I was at a meeting last night, and in the last 2 weeks, I've had two friends overdose on fentanyl. One died, the other one was dead for 2 minutes and came back, and then that's kind of like the bottom. The bottom being you're dead,
Without a doubt.
so it's when I hear your story about going to the multiple treatments and stuff, I had a similar question to Andrew, and I hear you talking a lot about um others and working with them, and I did hear you talk about doing it for you, but how does that feel? Because I felt similarly for a long time that I needed to. And this is part of like a two-part question. I was going to ask, how have you built back trust with family and friends? Because, we kind of, we abuse and manipulate that so much, to an extent that when we get back sober, I remember when I came back, I was like, why isn't everyone like clapping with trumpets,
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, because you burned almost every bridge and every close friendship. So I guess I just want to hear from you on that one. How has that looked,
Yeah.
coming back?
Um, Slow, but like I'm doing things to put in, I when someone asks me to do something, I do it. Like when someone tells me not to do something, I don't do it. It's just like the smallest things. But I've also put in place measures in my recovery program where, um, as part of my job, but my boss is also my mother, right? So as part of I'm on SoberLink, so I blow into a breathalyzer 3 times a day. Um, when I go back to Herren Wellness for like the alumni events on like Wednesday, my recovery coach Danny like throws me a piss cup. He's like, "Go," and I'm like, "Well, this wasn't part of the program." And then it's like, "Oh wait, you smoke pot every day for the better half of 19 years." So, it's like I lied to everyone. So if they want me to blow into a breathalyzer and they want me to pee into a cup, like, I'm all for it. If that's going to help them feel better. And it also gives me, like, every time I blow into that thing and I see 000, like, that's a win. Um, the trust thing is, I thought about this a few months ago. Like, do they trust me? Like, does my family trust me? Do they not trust me? And what was striking was that I hadn't, the striking part was that I hadn't thought about it for a while. And like, this sounds bad, but I almost, I almost didn't need, it's like, wait a second, I don't need them to trust me because I'm not trying to pull one over on anyone.
Hmm.
Like I'm not, like, if they trust me, great. So and I think they do. Um, sometimes they probably don't, and that's fine. Uh, one of my good friends who went to the same treatment center that Andrew and I went to Herren, like he says, like, we did a lot of damage on the way in. Like I did a lot of damage on the way in. So if people want to put in place, like, and look at it, because like historically, if I didn't want to pee into a cup or I didn't want to take a breathalyzer, it's because I wanted to smoke weed and get drunk. Like, I mean, just call it like it is, right? So, I'm happy to do those things, and I think I'm more present. I'm around my family. I hang out like those. My other sister had a baby, right? So like I was hanging out with my nephew over the weekend, like playing baseball with my nephew or t-ball, like kind of going fishing with him and everything, holding his hand. And like my mother was like kind of watching that dynamic. And that was, you know, 20 months ago, I wasn't allowed at the kid's baptism.
Hmm.
Um, and then I have another nephew now, like over the last couple of years, my other sister had a kid who is I'm his godfather, right? So like these little things are and that's a big thing, right? Um, None of that wouldn't have happened unless I got unless I got clean and continued to like live a life of recovery. So in that regard, I think like they do trust me a little bit, right? But everyone knows I'm one bad decision away from like losing everything. So um, I hope that sort of answers the question.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, I think for me, it definitely does. Couple things that I also wanted to go into, if you're comfortable with it as well, and it's. I mean, I agree too. It with both of you, it takes a lot of time. It's taken a lot of time for me, at least, to get trust back. And that's not something like you said. It's almost like not even something that I need. Like because if I wanted trust in the past, it was because I wanted them to be lulled into a false sense of security so that I could screw with them. Like that's
Yeah.
it. That's the only like so I don't the only reason that that is desirable is so that they can have peace of mind, like
Hmm.
not so that I can have some sort of advantage on them.
Hmm.
So I think that was really well said. If you're comfortable with it, I want to like because this is not I mean it maybe it is it's not I mean I don't it's not something that I do a lot of or any of but just because I think it would probably go poorly for me but like gambling, right? We haven't had a lot of guests on this podcast or any guests that have talked about um gambling as part of their story and I think it's not like minimized maybe but it's something that addicts, alcoholics, like it's kind of a weird gray area for us.
Hmm.
Like, do we do it? Do we not do it? Is it
Yeah.
so what is that? If it's all right with you, like I'd love to know like what does that look like for you in recovery? Is it more difficult to stay away from it because it's not like, you're not gonna blow as you don't have to breathalyze for gambling. You don't have to, you know what I mean? Like you can
Yeah.
hide it. Until you can't obviously when the debt gets so crazy but
Yeah.
I just it's I'm curious like what does that look like for you.
Yeah. Gambling is a huge part of my story, and I'm more than happy to talk about it. Like and I went through a gambling like I have 18 months without a drink or a drug, but I was gambling last fall. Like when I was living in the sober house, I was gambling. And like it didn't go well, right? Um I didn't go into treatment uh with a lot of money, but like it just didn't go well, right? And it got to the point where like I got in, I've been in deeper before, but I got in pretty deep and I had to come clean with some people, which I did not want to do. Um, I don't know. The gambling is like, I still like I play fantasy football for money and stuff. And, like um on the golf course, short money here and there. Like I do DraftKings. Like I probably shouldn't do any of these things, you know? Um, but like gambling big money with the bookie is I woke up in like November and December or whatever last fall. Like I had the same feelings uh that I did when I was an active alcoholic. Like the anxiety, the depression, knowing I shouldn't be doing this. Um, and then I was thinking, like, holy shit, like if I feel this bad about this now, like of this, like I didn't even pick a drink up. Like imagine how bad I'd feel if I like relapsed. Um, and and everyone's saying like, holy shit, like I'm surprised that you were able to do that and not pick up a drink. Like I'm
Mm.
lucky. I'm lucky that I didn't. So that's a very, very uh slippery road, right? Like I would not recommend anyone who's in recovery like really goes down that road and gambles. I don't um yeah, but like kids like it's the same. Like I say I'm an alcoholic, but as I mentioned, I smoked weed for 19 years every day. So I guess I'm a drug addict. Like I love gambling. You know what I mean? It's like calling it's like calling a carrot a vegetable. It's the same shit.
Yeah.
You know, like
I,
it's something like anything that gets me out of myself,
mm.
like that makes me, you know what I mean? Like so it's a lot of the same shit.
I've been
Yeah.
talking about this so much recently. It's been coming up in my life so much, and it's really weird. It's like my buddy had I think it was like 6.5 years, 7 years, relapsed on fentanyl. And one of the first things he said to me was, I thought I was an alcoholic. I didn't think I had a drug problem. And I work in a treatment setting um, as well. And some of the guys that we have come in talk about, I'm an addict. I'm not an alcoholic, or I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an addict. And then, you know, like you just said, I truly believe it is just a disease of let me get away from me. I need to get outside of this. I'm not comfortable sitting here like as is, and I need to get out. And whatever gets me out, let's do it. Gambling, drugs, alcohol, sex, food. I mean, the list goes on, as we know. And truly, I mean, I said this in the meeting on Tuesday. I was like, it doesn't matter what you put at the end of your name. We're all in this room. You know what I mean? We're all in this room together, because we talk about community, how important that is. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to better ourselves by working together. And it is sometimes frustrating to me getting caught up on some things like that. I think I wanted to ask you with your subsequent treatment experiences, when it comes to like sponsorship and step work, how has that looked throughout? Did you like did you get a sponsor at all of those, some of those, and at this time did you get one early, and like how have the steps played a role in this one and this time around getting you to a year and a half?
I wouldn't say so. So I've had sponsors, right? I had a sponsor when I was down in Seekonk, and we were working through the steps, and we got to like step 4, right? So I mean, I have experience with the steps. I've not completed the steps in their entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am working with a sponsor on the South Shore now. Um, it's a pertinent question because like I need a fire lit under my ass to take that next step. Like just last week I asked him because I don't know if like the whole sponsorship thing is going to work out, like, and that's fine. He's a great guy in recovery and everything. I asked him if he'd take me through the steps, and he was like, I think someone else should do it. So that's what I'm working on right now. But like I'm familiar enough, obviously, with the steps where I try to mirror my life, you know what I mean, after them. There was one thing that you said earlier too that I just wanted to go back to about like you mentioned all those things and like getting outside of yourself. That's something that really changed for me to Andrew's question earlier. Like what changed this time around? Um, I thought for so long if I could just stop drinking, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
But then I realized like I needed to be fine before I could stop drinking. Like I needed to be okay with myself, comfortable with myself, or else like this whole like sobriety recovery thing, it's not going to be long term.
Mm.
You know? Does that make sense? Like you obviously need one without the other. Like I needed to put the drink down. Like I needed to go away to treatment and like physically get away from it. But then I needed to do a lot of work on myself um in order to uh keep the drink away, if that makes sense.
I mean, that's why we have all the meetings, of people with prolonged recovery. That's why they keep coming because, we're not drinking or drugging anymore, but we're alcoholic or addict. So our brain is, it's different. So we need,
Mm-hmm.
that comfortability that you talk about. That's what we're working on in prolonged recovery, really.
For sure.
So I agree. I agree completely.
Because like I used to think that like recovery was like societal expectations have always been like a big pressure for me or whatever. Like if I could get out of like Eliza, the first time I went to treatment, she's like, "What do you want? Like, what are your goals?" And I'm like, "I don't know, like get the fuck out of here and make a lot of money." Like that's what I said.
Yeah, that's fair.
And she's like, "Oh God, you're fucked." And she was right. Because like 6 years later, 5 years later, and that's only then did I get it. So like what I mean by that is like I always okay, if I can just get back to work and if I can just get the bank account up high enough, or if the girl is pretty enough, then I'll feel better about myself and then I won't be drinking as much. And it was completely ass backwards. Um, Whereas like now, I laugh about this too. I'm talking to you from my parents' basement where I live, right? Uh, as a 37-year-old man. Temporary, certainly not ideal. And I guess I'm not too embarrassed about it because I'm like comfortable enough, right? But like crazy, crazy way that like you change your thinking. If you told me when I went in there February of 2022 that you're gonna have 18 months sobriety and this is where you're gonna be, I would say F that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like 18 months ago, when I was looking at 18 months of sobriety, like I would want to have my own buy my own condo. I would want my relationship with the girlfriend to get back. I would want, you know what I mean? I'd want all of these
Ego.
things
Mhm.
that have not happened. But like living a life of recovery, I don't know, you just realize what's important. And like so long as I keep a drink out of my hand and do the right thing, like everything's gonna work out for me. And I truly believe that.
Yeah, I agree. Um, if you told me if you told me 2 years ago stepping into treatment that I would be recording this podcast. I mean, first of all, if you told me I'd be talking about it willingly on a podcast, or you like a year ago at my year celebration, if like you told me like you would be doing this, I'd be like, I don't think so, Skippy. Like, so number one, that's crazy. Number two, if you told me 2.5 years ago that I'd be sitting in my parents' house, like recording a podcast about recovery, I would have done the same thing. And that, like, I heard Mitch, you say it, like it's all ego. It's all ego coming out, and it's almost the same thing as we've been talking about. It's like I desperately want to get outside of myself and to like and beyond drugs, alcohol, gambling, like it's the job for me. It's money for me. It's woman. It's like it's being in a relationship. It's having my own place. And like you said, Skippy, and I'm the same way about it. I'm not like I'm not satisfied here. Like
Yeah,
I'm not just gonna rest on my laurels and be like, yeah, I'm like this is where
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to be and this is where I'm gonna stay forever. But
for sure.
like, but I'm content. Like I'm content today. Like even if I don't have everything that I want or that I'm like aspiring to have, because like you said, like I know if I don't pick up and I do if I do the right thing just every single day, every action, like every minute at a time, then things are generally going to work out, for the better. And again, if somebody told me that I would say that, like I would be saying this right now, 2 years ago, I'd be like, who is this kid? Like like who brainwashed him? Like he doesn't have shit. Because on paper, it doesn't look like it's funny because living the double life in active use on paper, it looks pretty good.
I know.
And now on paper, like it doesn't look great,
Hmm.
but it feels a lot better because I don't live a double life.
I
You
don't
know what
live
I
a
mean?
double life for it, like it's like I and it is hard too. Like staying sober is hard. Um, that's the problem with like drugs and alcohol is that they work, you know? Like you need to be what I've realized too is that like things that used to take me out, um, you need to be comfortable sitting in uncomfortable feelings. Like the ex-girlfriend's not talking to me right now, which has never happened before. It's happened with plenty of other girls and people, but not her. Uh, and I don't like it, and I don't know what to do.
Mm.
But it's like I can't drink over it. Like, what the hell is that going to do? But it's tough. Like, like as most people, when they're having a tough day, or they're not feeling the best, like they can relax and have a couple glasses of wine. Like I can't do that. But I'm starting to take pride in it. Like a guy that chairs at this meeting that I go to in Hingham on weekday mornings, he talks about like people are watching. Like you don't think they are, but they're watching. And I used to think like, what does that mean? Like I got eyes on me, people tailing me, like when I'm going to the bar and like not. And it's like, no, like people are paying attention. People see the way that you act as a son, as a husband or a father. Like I'm not either any of them, but like as an employee, as a person, as a brother, like they see
As a
how you
godfather.
as a godfather. They see how you go about like your life without drugs and alcohol. And that's pretty admirable. And I'm like excited about that and that's how I know that I'm kind of getting better.
I'll tell you, I'll tell you this. I'm about 6.5 years sober, and I stalled on the steps basically the first 3-4 years. And I relate to you when you're saying like, ex-girlfriend's not talking to me, that irritable discontent. I tried to hold on to my self-will for a long time there. And once I finally started doing the steps with a sponsor completely, I was given a cornucopia, if you will, of tools to handle those feelings and situations,
Yeah.
And I used to resent someone looking at me and be like, I'd be in a meeting angry as shit, and they'd be like, it's a simple program, do the steps, do the step work, do an inventory,
Yeah.
do a fear list, and I was like, I don't want to listen to you. You don't know what you're talking about. Once I started doing those things, like once I started fully listening to my sponsor, listening to the guys in my home group, all that stuff, bro, the weightlessness and that irritableness and that discomfort, I promise it really does get taken away, and I hear you on the step 4 too. Not a fun step. And I'm not trying to like, all I'm trying to say is, trying to share that my experience with it was,
Yeah.
A spiritual experience.
Yeah, no, I like it's kind of funny. Like I say I look forward to it, but I know I need to do them. But like I also look back, right? It's like I was working with the sponsor, we were kind of going through the steps. Like geographically it wasn't going to work because I was kind of moving back to the Boston area and he was sort of down in Providence, um but we got to step 4 and that's when it kind of like flailed out, right? And
Yeah.
like I had never feared a step 4. But like all of a sudden, it was very easy for me to be like, "Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that
Yep.
tomorrow. I'll
Yep.
do that tomorrow." Right. Um, so again, very pertinent topic. Like Danny and I were talking about it last week. Everything else is going really, really well right now. Like
Yeah.
steps is the next step.
Yeah. No, I mean, bro, you're killing it. And to hear your story and your growth and where you are, and it's a fucking miracle. I mean, all 3 of us sitting in here on a Zoom recording, talking about recovery. It's a miracle, without a doubt. So yeah, I never want to be like, go do your steps, because that shit pisses me off.
Yeah,
I'm just sharing that. You know what I mean. That's all I'm saying.
I got you, man. No,
I want that relief for everyone. You know what I mean?
for sure. No, I appreciate it. I mean, this has been awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, this has been for me at least, Skippy, it's been really special just to hear your story. I've never really heard. I wasn't at your I might have been like working during your year celebration. That's kind of how it works for me. But I'd never heard your story, and I've been around you for the last couple of years. And we've grown into pretty good friends, and I'm grateful for that friendship and for that whole sober fantasy group that we have, which is
Sober
a
fantasy.
hilarious group chat name. But that's the type of laughs that we can have, like that fellowship keeps me going a lot of days.
Yep.
So I can't thank you enough for being on and for sharing your story, and for like Mitch, I don't know if you know this, but like Skippy like approached me, was like, hey, like I want to be on. You not like I want to like talk and fucking advertise myself, but like, hey, I think it would be good for me to share my story. Like because it is like because he's talking about it, because this is I tell Mitch all the time, this could be like, this is a meeting for me. Like it's not a formal, we're not formally endorsed. It's nothing. We're not authorities on anything. It is a meeting of three alcoholics,
Without a doubt.
which for me has the same effects really as going to my regular fellowship. So, I'm really, really proud and happy you came on, and I'm grateful that you wanted to share your story. And I'm just excited to see where it goes for both of us. And you're gonna have to take me out fishing on your boat soon. That's all I'm saying.
If you're around this weekend, I'll give you a call.
There you go.
Mitch, we got to get you out to the East Coast, buddy.
Oh man. Yeah. I think I'm stuck out here, but yeah, Chris, it was awesome to meet you. You know, I always have to say that kind of weirdly, but you know, it was awesome to meet you, awesome to listen to you. And I love when Andrew brings on you know, former guests at Herren and stuff, and to see the relationship that you guys have and that brotherhood. It makes me feel good, you know, like seeing that, like that I think we were talking real quick before, the community over there just looks like so powerful, you know, and that's really, really a beautiful thing that, to be honest with you, you know, that's rare. I really feel that. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story with us.
Yeah, guys, it helped me. Like, as I thank you so much for having me on. I like, I've never done anything like this, so this was cool. I
knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, you did. Well, this is episode 49. Really, really excited to share this one, and we're getting closer to a year, Mitch. It's crazy. It's a crazy kind of realization, thinking back a year ago, probably a year ago now, you and I were having a phone conversation for like the first time. It's amazing. It's amazing to have had 26 guests, each one of them is special. And just like the rest of them, this has been a real special episode. So I'll keep coming back, and I'm really, really, really excited to share this episode with you guys.
Yep. Keep coming back. Episode 49. Completely agree with what Andrew said. Chris, thank you. Andrew, thank you. Ravens football Saturday night.